opportunity. My name is Michael Korir. I'm the relationship manager at Medic. Having been at Medic for the last 6 years, I'm supporting partners as well as ministries of health. So I just wanted to take you through the muting feature that is configurable as one of the actions in CHT. And basically the role or the work of muting is, if you find a situation where a community health volunteer cannot be able to relocate to locate a household or a household member, then they're able to mute them so as to put to a hold their reminders or their tasks for a couple of time until they come back to their houses or to their specific areas. So if they temporarily relocate, then we can be able to mute those households or those people. So it's something to notice that you will not get any reminders or any tasks for those specific households that you have muted for persons. This is, I've logged in here as a community health volunteer, and these are my households here. So I need to select one of the households, for example, the Jill household here. So the next thing that I need to perform is a new action for that specific household. So I have two options: either I can do a wash service or I can mute the household. For our case, I'm muting this household. And the question that is asking me is that what is the reason for muting Jill household? So let's select the household as relocated to outside CHV catchment area. The next question will be, please confirm that you want to mute Jill household, and I say yes, and I submit. So this goes to my supervisor, and I'll show you how that looks like on the other side. So I can select another household of John, and I go to the specific person that I want to mute. For this case, I want to mute John. I perform a new action for John, and then I mute the person. The same question for muting a household. So this person, John, has relocated. I'm selecting that, and then I confirm that I want to mute John and submit. So once I do the submission, I ensure that I synchronize my work to ensure that the task goes to the supervisor. And this is how the supervisor looks like. So let me just synchronize as a supervisor on this side. And you can be able to see the tasks that I've received from one of my CHV. So Jill household, they've requested for muting household, as well as from the John household is to mute a person. So I select on that specific task. So this has been requested by my CHV, and the reason is because they relocated to outside the CHV area, and I approve and submit. So the same applies to John as a specific person, not a household. The same procedure, I approve the muting and submit. Once I do the submission, I ensure that my work is synchronized, and I go back now to my CHV UI. Here we are. So when we go to the household of, I need to also synchronize on my end. So when you go to the household of Jill, just a second. So the Jill household, you will see that the household is grayed out and it's indicated that it's muted, not like these other icons that are still in a active stage. You see it has a different color, but for this case, it's muted. And all the household members under Jill household are also muted. So you cannot be able to perform any other task for this Jill household. The same also applies to John. When I visited the household of John, I had muted John. So when I select John, you'll be able to see that the icon is also grayed out, and it has indicated that it's muted. So, and I cannot be able to perform any action for John. So basically that is the muting request and the muting feature in CHT. If you want to, when they come back after relocation, you still go to the same household and the opposite of muting now will be unmuting. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael Corey, for the wonderful presentation. I see there is a question from Raymond. Raymond, would you like to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Yeah, so I just wanted to check with Korea whether there's any action that has to happen from the supervisor's end before they actually do the approval, or do they just approve and life goes on?
So there's two options, Raymond. It's either to approve or reject. So you get a task from your CHV. So if you reject, that household is not going to be muted. But once you confirm and you approve, then the household gets muted.
Yeah, I guess what I mean is there some kind of interaction between the supervisor and the CHP? Or do they just approve? As long as the task comes in, the approval, they either approve or disapprove. So I don't know what that would be based on, the decision to disapprove. Is there like some kind of interaction happening before that decision is made?
Yes, so there is a conversation happening between the supervisor and the CHV, confirming that it's true that this specific either household or person has relocated, and you confirm the same, and then you can go ahead and approve. But if it was erroneously sent and that household or that person is still within the area, then you reject. So the conversation can happen outside the app, Raymond.
Okay, so either by phone call or messaging or something like that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we do have questions as well from Jackie. Would you like to ask the question?
Yes, thank you very much. So from your demo, Michael, we could see that the household actions were all deactivated once the muting was approved. So where is your unmute action icon, which will revert this issue, which will revert the muting functionality?
Yes, Jackie, that's a very good question. So the same way you did the muting is the same way you do the unmuting. So the UI that I did demonstrate right now doesn't have the unmuting option, but it's simply the same way of muting. Then you can have the unmuting option. So it will come as a new action. You just select on the new action. And when you click on that, instead of it telling you that you mute the household or the person, so it will be the opposite of that, and it will be unmute.
Yeah, okay. So it's just this particular instance which you were using that doesn't have that feature. Okay. So before I finalize, I think I asked another one here on whether you have done the use case for CHW muting, like the entire CHW area muting, the same way we are muting the household and unmuting. And I wanted to ask this because in cases where you mute like a CHW area and you get all the families muted, have you experienced where you unmute the CHW area and all the families are not unmuted? Because it's supposed to be a cascading down feature.
So, yeah, thanks for that, Jack. We haven't had a situation where we mute the CHW area, like all members of that CHW moving out or relocating, but I believe that is something that is doable, and it can be developed in CHT.
So I'm asking this because we do have the feature working for us in Living Goods, but now we had to find a way to like a workaround to include scripts that will allow us to have that cascading back and forth, because it's not as straightforward when you unmute a CHW area that all your CHWs get unmuted as well as down to their families. So it's something that we had to implement out of the box that CHT core comes with. Yeah, thanks, Michael. I think Moses Malele has something to add on this.
Sure.
Thank you, Jackie. I think she's right. That feature is also enabled on the side of the supervisors, because on our supervisor app, there is that workflow of VHT member muting. So the assumption would be that if I picked up a particular VHT to mute on the side of the supervisor, I expect that that VHT and all the households that she's supporting to be muted on the other end. So I think Jack is right, just to test that hypothesis if it's fully tested on your end. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie and Malele Moses. Before we move, maybe we'll take one more question from Imran. Imran, would you like to ask a question about the muting?
Yeah, just a quick one. I was just curious to understand what happens in case the supervisor decides to reject the approval. Like, does the CHV get a notification within the CHT app, or does that conversation happen outside the CHT?
As it is right now, if you reject, you don't get any notification from your supervisor that this has been rejected. Definitely, this is now happening outside the app when you have a conversation with your CHV that you are going to reject that request from them. So, but in terms of in-app, you cannot be able to see that.
So there's documentation that's available on muting, and it just gives further details. I'm happy to see that there's so many questions on muting. So the documentation is available, and it just shows how you can configure your forms to do different things in terms of muting. So we'll share the link here so that you're able to go and see more details. I'll also call on to Michael Kohn to just speak a little bit about it.
Thanks, Maria Chana. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Cohen. I'm a product manager at Medic, and I'm based in the US. Just related to the muting stuff, as you've seen, we've got a lot of questions on these, and it sounds like there's a lot of different use cases for them. So I'm just going to post another link in here on the forum. We'd love to learn more about how you all are using muting and the different types of questions you have on it. So like I said, I just posted a link to the forum. Jackie, Malele, Kenneth, Imran, anything that you can post on the forum there, just so we can learn more about what types of things that you are already doing with muting or you would like to do with muting. We'd love to hear that. So yeah, if you could just drop your questions or comments there into the forum, that'd be awesome. Awesome. Thanks. So yeah, as most of you know, you can go ahead. There you go. Thanks. Care teams have been working on several user interface improvements to the CHT, so that it has a consistent look and feel with other Android apps. And so, as you can see in this slide, the changes that we've been working on really started in 3.17 with updates to how filters and search work, and in 4.1, we included some changes to how bulk delete works. And in 4.2, which hasn't quite been released yet, you'll see some updates to how secondary actions like edit and delete work. And we're currently working on removing the bottom bar and replacing it with a floating action button, which is something you'll see in most Android apps. And then once we're done with that, we'll begin work on updating how navigation works in the app. I really wanted to bring this up just because I know that several projects out there are currently planning or working on your upgrades to 4.x, and we just really want to make sure that you are all also preparing and planning for these UI changes. The full details of each change can be found in the release notes, but we'd be happy to chat through them with you in some more detail. And for sure, feel free to reach out on the forum. I'm just going to copy in some of the release notes so you can see those directly if you want to see some more details about those changes. So yeah, that's it on the UI updates, and just wanted to make sure you all are aware that those are coming as you are planning your upgrades. Cool. So as I just mentioned, recognizing that many of the projects will want to provide some, with all these changes, we understand that many projects will want to provide some extra training on these changes. So we're releasing some training cards capability in 4.2 as well. So we've demonstrated this this feature before, but if you're not familiar with it, these training cards help health workers learn about changes to their app remotely through an in-app modal pop-up. So you can customize the content and who sees the cards, and also monitor and through analytics who's actually completed who's viewed the training and who's completed them, how much time they spent on them. So all of that data is available. Previously, this feature was only available as a feature release, but it's now included in 4.2, and it is fully documented and includes which includes like some high level feature information, as well as a configuration guide. And we have also now included some command line tooling for help with configuring and deploying them. There's the documentation for the training cards along with the configuration guide. So yeah, that's it for care teams right now. So yeah, just as a reminder, all these UI changes are already released, so be aware as you're planning for your upgrades. And if you want some tools for helping train users on these new updates, 4.2 training cards will help you do that. That's it.
Great, thank you. Hi, I'm Ashley Jones, technical product owner. I'm based in the United States, and Allies, along with the infrastructure team and SRE, has helped publish documentation for self-hosting for 4X. I'm not going to go over it in detail, but I did want to highlight that the documentation is live and should enable anyone looking to self-host 4X based on the new architecture is ready for consumption. We welcome any feedback on that in the forums. We've also been focusing on a solution for the CHT Docker helper. There's been some issues with the DNS resolution for a local IP co, which manifest as you call CHT conf and the call will fail, or you're trying to load the browser page and it doesn't work. And it's really frustrating for app developers. So we're hoping to release basically the same thing, but under a Medic hosted domain, as well as an open source recipe for anyone who wants to run this themselves. I really appreciate the feedback we've got. I saw that Imran was speaking earlier, and Dietry and Imran helped highlight this issue. So very much appreciated.
My name is Josh. I'm a software developer here at Medic, and I want to talk to you briefly today about app development, and specifically some work that we're doing to try to make it easier to set up a development environment to create or edit a CHT application. Anybody who's done this before knows that to deploy, develop, and test a CHT app, you kind of need a whole stack of dependencies to be configured on your local system. So you've got to have Node and NPM, you've got to have Python and the PyXform module, you got to install CHT conf, you've got to have other libraries on the system. If you're on Linux, you need XSLT proc and that kind of thing. So all kinds of stuff that you need, and that has to be set up on every single machine that's going to do app development. Anytime you have a new machine come in or a new developer come in, they've got to do the same setup on their machine. It can be different, across various platforms. So the steps that work on Linux aren't going to work on Mac OS. And we have another kind of alternative that we've been working on here, and that is, what if we just take everything, put it in a Docker image? And then you've got this Docker image that's pre-built with all of those dependencies that you can just use to do development on. And so what I'm showing you here on the screen that I'm sharing is VS Code, which is what I'm going to be using as my development environment. And VS Code offers this handy feature of a dev container environment, which basically means you can point VS Code to a Docker image and it will reopen itself inside that Docker image so that it has access to all of the system utilities, all of the dependencies that are already installed on that Docker image are going to be available to VS Code as if it was kind of running native on that system. So really, it gives you kind of a clean, integrated development environment that's going to have everything that you need already set up to deploy, develop, and test CHT applications. Currently, right now, though, what I have here on the screen is VS Code. I've opened a folder that has the default CHT configuration in it. This folder is open in VS Code. It's a folder on my local machine. This terminal is my local machine's terminal. And as you can see here, if I run CHT, it's not installed. So I have no CHT conf installed on my local machine. But what I do have is I've added this one configuration file and I've pointed it to a Docker image. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go down here into the bottom left-hand corner, click on this green button and select reopen in container. VS Code is going to reopen and it's gonna spin up a new Docker container that is basically acting as the back end for VS Code. And you'll see the terminal looks a little bit different here now. That's because this is a terminal running in the container. But most importantly, now, without doing any kind of setup on my local machine at all, I have CHTConf installed and running in there. And just like CHTConf is already in there, so is PyXform, so is anything that you need, Node, all of that stuff is already pre-installed in that container, and it's accessible while you're doing your development here. The files, so you'll see, we still see these same files. VS Code handles mapping those into the container. You can edit them here just like you would edit them normally, and it's going to be reflected back onto your local machine. And it gives you a very seamless development experience with kind of all of the tooling that you need here. This can be super useful, particularly in cases where you're trying to support multiple applications that maybe have conflicting dependency stacks. So you need an old version of Node to support a different application, but you want to use a newer version of Node to develop your CHT app in, and you can kind of compartmentalize all of your CHT development so that it's not dependent on your local system stack. And that's pretty much all I have for the demo. I will say there's a lot of different things you can do with this Docker image, not just VS Code dev containers. It can be used as a standalone utility and just run it from the command line to do your various CHTConf commands. And we've been experimenting with developing apps in the cloud using GitHub Codespaces in this image. And yeah, so this functionality is hot off the press. There is a link to the branch. It's currently not released just yet, but it's coming soon. And there's a link to the branch out there. All the documentation is in the README on that branch for how you can build the image and use it in VS Code, set up your configuration for it. And we're planning on, pushing a Docker image soon so that you won't even have to build the image locally yourself.
Thank you, Michael, Ashley, and Josh. At this point, we'd like to ask if any of the participants have any questions related to the care team and the allies team update. Now we'll just keep like a brief update on the CHT Academy. So we have launched the CHT Academy. So the URL for the CHT Academy, like we can see in the screen, is academy.communityhealthtoolkit.org. You can see the screenshot, how it looks like on the Community Health Toolkit Academy. So you can, it's open for everyone. You can register now. You can see the register now button towards the upper right-hand corner. And once you register, you can log in And then after you log in, you can see the available courses. Right now we have 2 available courses, which are, one is the high-level overview of the CST, or the Community Health Toolkit itself, and the demo, and the other covers the is more focused towards the technical side and helps on building the CHT application. You can enroll on these courses and then see the video tutorials we have, assignments and quizzes. We'd also love to hear any feedback that you have for the CHT Academy. So that's all I have. So thank you, everyone. So like I said earlier, we have the CHT Roundup call every second Thursday. So the next CHT Roundup call would be happening on April 13th. So we look forward for your presence and then participation as well. We'll be sharing about the next Roundup call agenda in the CHT forum soon before the next Roundup call. So thank you everyone for attending the CHT Roundup call and then your participations.